Welcome to Beyond the Vision for Shalom World TV. It's a show where we take faith-based and inspiring films and go behind the vision to see what motivated it. Thanks for joining us. Today we have Chris Meehan from The Dating Project. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here. I love you.
My name is Cecilia Lucia Campos Gutierrez. I am single.
My name's Shanzi. Hi, boys.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an active listener.
My name is Matt Shilton, and I am single.
There's like single, married, and then there's extra single, and that's the one that I would check off.
So The Dating Project, how did you get involved?
A friend of mine, Megan, who's the producer, actually asked me, I fit the archetype or the demographic that they were looking for. So, yeah, that's how it started.
So it's a pretty personal role that you're playing, being a featured single. Was that easy to convince you to kind of do that? Were you reluctant?
Well, I wish it was a role, but it was my real life, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was actually. Now that they've seen the movie, I'm slightly embarrassed because I was fairly candid, and but it was also truthful, so I guess I have to live up to what I said.
So Chris, how has your life changed by being in the documentary? Do you feel like your faith life has altered at all? Your personal life?
Yeah, I actually went through the process of the documentary. I think it was over a year and a half maybe, and was in a couple of challenging life situations. And yes, spiritually for sure, I was kind of surprised by that. Talking about dating and relationships actually moved into the realm of spirituality or God, faith, and what I wanted out of life and what I wanted out of a girlfriend or a spouse. And in that way, it's been very much, I feel like I'm a different person. Yeah, just having to deal with those questions, answer those questions, and then publicly having private moments made me kind of want to live up to what I said or who I'm presenting.
Yeah, sure. Now, did you have people asking you questions throughout the process, or was it completely candid all?
It was primarily the director, John Cipity, and he did a really good job about just building rapport. And, I really trusted him. I felt like I was in good hands. So we just kind of let it flow. So it was actually it was a guy-to-guy conversation. Although we had, Catherine and Megan were the producers, they actually did give us room just to kind of speak guy to guy with two cameras rolling. But yeah. I don't know if this is why I'm single, but the only thing I ask of a woman is that they replace you. Is that bad? Is that bad? Do you think women turn away from that?
Oh, heaven's sakes.
You really know that's.
Your mother is quite charming. How
She's
did she
pretty
get
good.
involved with the project?
How did I get involved? Well, my mom gave birth to me, so she was, and that's how the project started.
Yeah.
They interviewed my mom, and she kind of just took over. I think she's a bit of a natural.
Yes.
What's interesting too is to hear those things about the stuff that's not even in the movie and to capture that video is to, I felt just so fortunate because it really captured my mother. So I kind of have this thing I can look at where she's candidly speaking about life, her relationship with my dad, and all those things, and her faith life. So having her there was just a gift and a blessing. My mom is, she is surprisingly, she has a sense, she's innocent without being naive. She has 8 kids, so she's not that innocent, but there's a certain, I guess everyone says this about their mother, but there's a certain holy quality about my mom that still surprises me.
Very nice. So at the end of the Dating Project, there's a sort of call to action with this hashtag theme, date differently. How do you feel about that?
I think it's great. I think it's great. People should just start dating. One thing I find limiting about the title is that it kind of puts, for me, I kind of put dating alone in its own little ghetto, and I found myself kind of swirling around that, Whereas really dating was connected to a relationship or courtship. And so if that is what is meant by date differently, kind of move in that direction, because I think people can just get stuck. It's isolated from the actual end game, which is a relationship or a connection.
Is there anything else that you want to tell people about dating that you learned from this project?
About dating, well, if I want to tell someone about, I would say first and foremost, have fun. Just have fun. Enjoy the other person. That's it. And then if there's something else there, that's great. But, it's a person. It's a person. And I think about dating, what I've discovered is in dating, it's kind of what I want. In a relationship is what I can give. So how do I get there? How do I get something that I can give? So I think kind of broadening dating and put it in your whole life. Begin with the end in mind. And start from there. And rejection's part of it, and that's fine. It's everywhere. And you can roll with it. You'll survive.
Yeah. And please tell our viewers, where can they see the Dating Project?
Where can you see the Dating Project? Well, if you go to thedatingprojectmovie.com, type in your city, zip code, and I'm sure you will find a theater near you, probably several.
Thank you so much, Chris, for being here.
Thank you.
Dating is
Something that
I don't know.
Dating, what is that? It's so vague. It's a vague question. Dating is difficult.
Complicated.
Dating in today's society is cruel.
Dating is awesome.
dating is a pain in the ass.
An adventure.
Megan Harrington, writer and a producer of The Dating Project. Megan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So how did The Dating Project come about, this idea?
Catherine Fowler Sample. She was Catherine Fowler at the time. She's now married with a baby, so she's one of the success stories behind the scenes. We were working on another documentary for Empower Pictures, and the client was interested in pitches for ideas. So we were both single at the time. We had been to a dinner party where 14 women were there, and 2 were married, and the rest were single. And a lot of them wanted to be in a relationship, but also wanted to just go on a date. So we thought, this is a great world to explore. So we started to put together a pitch with archetypes, and fortunately it got funded, and we were able to make the film.
Lovely. That's such an inspiring story. You don't hear that often, that you have one vision and it continues through to a finished product.
Oh, we know that was, and we always said that along the way, that we're lucky to be part of it, and we were lucky that it happened. And because I agree, it does take so long for things to happen, and sometimes they never do.
Very nice. So did you draw on inspiration from family and friends, or was it just pure writing archetype?
I don't know if it wasn't really based off family or friends. I think it was just things we were seeing, or just general things like career woman, or a man who has too many choices, options, and expectations, just out of college. So we kind of were just looking at those different segments and building around those.
Yeah, you represent a lot of different demographics and ages and different cities around the world, different cultures even. How did you go about choosing, not just casting, but kind of choosing the people, narrowing down the pool of which specific type you wanted, and then the casting process?
So we wanted a Hispanic young woman in a city. She ended up being in Chicago. I think that was the original city we had picked. The college kids we were unsure of, and we ended up finding them through Professor Cronin. So that's how they came about. She asked for volunteers in her class, and Shanzi was first to volunteer, and then would do it with Matt. So her and Matt, they would do it with each other, which ended up being great. We weren't going to originally have 2 college kids. It was going to be a college boy, young man. And then we ended up, I think having the 2 of them was a nice story. Chris, I knew. I had seen him at a party, and he was kind of talking about where he was at and what he was thinking about and how maybe he wanted to settle down or at least think about that more. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And then I went home and said, Catherine, we've got our 40-something. And Rashida is the African-American girl in New York. And originally, she was going to be an African-American girl in the South, in North Carolina. So a smaller area, not in a big city. But 3 weeks out, the original girl we were going to be with said, I don't know how much time I'm going to be able to give you. And we said, oh, that's a red flag. We have got to find a replacement because if she doesn't have time now when we get there, it's a lot of of an investment of your time. It's not just, hey, we're with a cell phone, and can we get a couple of questions? They ask you a couple of questions. So when we called Rashida, she said, I just finished a prayer promise for women and for men in relationships, those that were married and those who wanted to be in relationships, and I didn't know what God was going to do with that. So we said, this is God. And no, we didn't say that, but she got the point. We got the point. And we ended up filming with her, which was wonderful.
About 8 or 9 years ago, I realized that students were dating, and I sort of was finding out things about hookup culture, and I thought, well, this is crazy. So I started asking students to go on what I refer to as traditional date.
Carrie Cronin is a professor at Boston College. How did you get in touch with her?
Catherine's sister was working with us at the time, and she was doing a lot of research. And one day she said, you have to see this professor. There's an article called The Dating Doctor. And so we read the article. It was in the Boston Globe, and we went and watched her YouTube videos. And immediately, and when you see in the film, she just is very engaging, really funny, articulate, and relatable. And we said, oh, we've got to try to have her at least consider being in the film. So, I mean, took a while to actually get in touch with her, and we sent her a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls. And she's a professor first. That's her main priority, which is what's so wonderful about her is that's her mission. And then you have two people who are wanting you to be in a documentary. It's probably not real high on your priority list of returning a call. So the fact she did return our call we were really grateful, and then she agreed to be in the film.
Now, did you anticipate her sort of process in breaking down the dates? Did you already know about that?
When we found her, we had already started the process of putting the treatment together. We didn't know at the time how big of a role she would play. And it became really clear after we were in Boston. Because we had other people we interviewed. There are people that didn't make the film just simply because there's not space enough. There's only a certain amount of space in the film. So when we went, we didn't know she would probably end up being the through line. And so that was a great surprise.
Megan, so you were able to spend time with all these singles during filming. Did you witness any of their faith journeys changing, adjusting?
That is a great question, and yes. And it wasn't just people in the film either. It was, I think, a journey for everybody working on it, a spiritual journey that maybe you weren't expecting when we started. And I think Chris had, there definitely was something with his journey that may not be on screen in a way that others may talk about their faith, but you could definitely see that he was going through something spiritually, and there was decisions and choices he was making that were real, and that it was bringing him to a different place. When you're asked hundreds and hundreds of questions and hours, I don't think you can get around the fact of having to answer those, whether it's on camera or later. And it's the same for us who were asking them or creating the questions. You are also going through a journey, and you are also starting to say, yeah, what do I want, and what do I think about that? And that is a big concern, and I didn't realize XYZ. So I think all of them in some way you could see, even with Rashida, who's very outspoken about her faith. She went through it, I think, on camera, because that's part of who she is, and the way that she talks and how she presents herself is really rooted in faith in God, and that's just part of her language. And she also had that journey, and I guess I'm going through all of them now. And Cecilia, hers was really neat of just coming to that point where, hey, I'm not alone in this. I feel like I am, but I just kind of realized I'm not the only person who wants these idealistic ways of being in relationship. I'm not alone. And sometimes it feels a little lonely.
My name is Cecilia Lucia Campos Gutierrez. I am single. I think it's hard. Well, I haven't really dated anyone, and I've been here for 4 years. To find someone that is on the same page as you, it's really hard.
As a writer with this medium of documentary, this genre, how does that play into? You're not actually writing the lines. Do you have kind of an outline of how you want a scene to go?
Yes, and it is very different than writing a feature. We had paper cuts. We went through everybody's interviews, all of them, highlighted all of them. It started out, I think the movie started out at 6 hours, and then from there it would just go down and down and down until you really had each of their arcs. So it's a process of just refining and refining, especially in this type of documentary where you do not know where they're going to end up. It's not like, oh, here's this person's story, start to finish, and you might add some things, but you know where it's going. We didn't really know where they would end up. We were hoping one would end up, with a relationship, not necessarily a marriage, but that something would spark and change. But at the end of the day, it's real life.
Did you have a light bulb moment listening to all of these people talking?
I did, actually, and there were a few, and they continue. Here you're working really hard on a film, and you're listening to people talking about working all the time, and then you're doing that, and you're like, but wait, but you're like, oh, well, it's because it's this film, and then there'll always be something else. So kind of reevaluating that, which I'm still doing. It's still a process. But that light bulb of, I do want to get married. And then you're like, well, what are you doing about it if you do? And if you stay single, if I stay single, that's fine as well. But just to acknowledge, if you want something, like it says in the movie, well, you've got to pursue that, and you have to make time for it. And I'm a work in progress on that. But it was one day I remember I was walking by the promenade, and I was like, oh, I wish I was at my kid's soccer game. Or you're kind of going, this is great, but in all these stories, you realize how beautiful the relationship and families are.
So now that the dating project is completed and ready to air, was there anything that you were surprised about in the project?
In the project, the biggest surprises were just what comes across, I think, is that collapse of courtship culture, of dating, of that really people don't necessarily know how to go on a date, or if they're on a date, is it a date? Or, hey, how do I express what I really would like, and how am I treating somebody? I think the biggest surprise, too, was the over-sexualization of everything and how that really is affecting people's ability to be in a relationship and to express what they would really like, which is what I love about Carrie Cronin's dating assignment. It just lays out a script. And you go into it knowing anything that's going to make me uneasy is off the table, except the fact I actually have to talk to somebody, which is also scary, to actually have a conversation face-to-face in this world of digital and phones, and to sit down and look someone in the eye and ask them about themselves, and then to listen. So that was one of the surprises, over the extreme over-sexualization of everything that's really made it difficult for people to navigate the sit down like we are and having a conversation.
Wonderful. Now, as a producer, it seems like at the beginning of the project, you sort of wanted a project to be working on, and so you had funding and you had a pitch and stuff, and by the end, you probably started to care a lot about the project, yes. I would guess, just a small bet. What do you hope for in the release of this?
I hope that there are theaters full of people who are going to go enjoy a night at the movies and have an unexpected encounter with reality, and laugh and maybe cry, and then say, hey, yeah, I want to date. I want to have courage to go ask someone out, get a lot of people dating, but a lot of people saying, I want something different than what I've been sold in how relationships look. And this dating assignment looks pretty enticing compared to what I might have been already participating in. So I just hope for a lot of theaters, April 17th, thedatingprojectmovie.com. You can see if a theater's near you, purchase tickets. I would love a movement to start where we all said, okay, here's the script. Let's start asking people out. Let's date differently.
Hashtag date differently.
Hashtag truth.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you, Sarah.
What is dating?
Dating in today's society is cruel.
I don't really think that anyone knows how to date. Like, it's not a skill that our generation really has.
In college, I would definitely say hooking up is 100% more common than dating.
Story of boy meets girl. Girl really likes boy. Girl thinks that boy really likes girl.
I wish you could just be old school. Like he looked at me, I looked away.
There's not that, gentleman and lady kind of feel to dating.
No limits anymore. Like making out isn't hooking up anymore. It's way further than that.
There's a ridiculous amount of pressure on people. Mr. Close Enough is out there. Mr. Perfect, he's nowhere to be found.
I'm here with Tony Sands, producer over at Family Theater Productions. Tony, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Happy to join.
Thank you. Now, you've produced a number of original projects through Family Theater Productions. How did you find that this would be a good fit?
Well, at first we thought no. Honestly, actually, because we had gone through a period in family theater where we had really pursued documentaries, and we still have them playing on places like PBS and whatnot. And they are a struggle. You know, they're great to make, they're powerful when they get out there, but they're really difficult to find an audience. It's really difficult to ever find, you know, your donor's money back again. So it can be a trick. And so we had this kind of policy of not working with documentaries. And then we actually connected with Megan and with Empower. And they showed us an early cut of the film and some footage they had shot, and I instantly fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this thing is amazing. And I haven't seen something that hit a topic that was so relevant in such a great, cool, beautiful way. It's a really well-shot film. And so I got to Father David and some of our other team and said, you need to see this thing. And they, of course, said no. So then after literally just some discussion, finally the team saw it and really also connected with the message. And that's how we figured that if there's some way for us to get involved, we'd be open to it. And sure enough, there was. And so it became a team of Empower, Paulus Productions, and Family Theater Productions.
Wonderful.
One thing we really liked about the film, too, is that family is our heart and soul. We were trying to encourage families to pray together, but we realized that families only happen when you have good marriages. Good marriages only happen when you have good relationships, and good relationships kind of are based on good dating, and that's not happening so much. So we were nervous, and this movie really addressed that.
Wonderful. Now, I hear you were a youth minister before you did some production.
That's right.
So, in your opinion, what do you think a good age is to start talking about dating and to maybe even start showing this film?
That's a great question. In terms of when to show this movie to your young people, the womb? No, but really very early. As far as it goes, I would show this movie to folks maybe as young as junior high. Because the honest thing is that they're seeing it in media that they watch. So TV shows that they're consuming and whatnot are talking about relationships, even in cartoons. And so by the time they've gotten to junior high, there's going to be some portion of that group of children, really, or of young people who are already talking about dating, whether they know what that really means or not. So having something like this where it kind of catches their attention, I think could really work. Of course, like anything else, parents should watch it first to make sure they're addressing subjects that their young people are willing to are able to process. If they don't know what a hookup is or having sex is quite yet, maybe it's too early for them. But I would look at an audience that young, just because it's already in the cultural speak at that point.
So, Tony, after seeing the completed documentary, how do you feel about it? What do you think it says about the dating culture?
A lot. The movie really speaks into the dating culture as far as addressing the fact that dating isn't really being done. And I have definitely been a victim of that. I'm maybe also a perpetrator. There's one thing that's mentioned in the movie about accidating. And I think I've been both an accidator and an accidatee.
Me too.
Yeah. You're out with somebody and you're like, is this a date? And then inside of it, is this a date? I'm like, is it a date? Oh, I probably should have determined that before we had this cup of coffee. But no, I think it's great. I think in a very non-judgmental, non-preachy way that's accessible to anybody, it addresses the dating culture that we're currently facing or the lack thereof and gives a cool, easy, very accessible solution. So that's powerful. I think the other thing, too, is it also recalibrates what we've been thinking. I think where things have gone off the rails before for dating and the social script we're using today is that people either come to a date expecting, like, if this is a person I won't marry within, like, 2 minutes of talking to them, I'm out, or I have to be out, or that I can date this person forever, and then we'll just see where it goes. Why label it? And I think this is good about putting parameters on that and saying, no, you're not doing anyone any favors, including yourself, if you don't have some parameters and guidelines.
My name is Cecilia Lucia Campos Gutierrez. I am single.
My name's Shanzi. Hi, boys.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an active listener.
My name is Matt Shilton, and I am single.
There's like single, married, and then there's extra single. And that's the one that I would check off.
So was there anything you were surprised about in the film?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that like people are really not dating at all or don't know how to do it, period. That literally it's sort of like, what do I say to begin with? Is scary because I think I'm on the cusp of the other end where you would date. It was still on the guy to ask a girl out. That was terrifying, of course, and always really hard and could be ego crushing. But that was part of like what being a guy was about. And so it was sort of nice to get into that zone where you sort of got away from that. But I realized that what seemed like an easier solution, which was to use apps or use online dating sites and whatnot, could also be a crutch and a problem. So it was surprising to see that people were not used to or opting to do something different than dating. They actually didn't know how to do it at all. Like, wow, they've like lost the language. It'd be like as if saying that like a phrase like "that's cool" suddenly was no longer understood by a whole generation. So yeah, that was surprising.
So, Tony, you've been a part of several screenings where the documentary is shown to smaller, maybe specific groups of people. What can you say of their overall reactions? Maybe give a few examples.
Absolutely. So reactions to seeing this film have been really strong. It's rare that someone doesn't connect on some level to this film. And one thing that's really important is that sometimes people come into it initially thinking, well, it's a dating project. I'm married or I'm, a widow or I'm like, whatever my age is, this isn't really for me. Well, I can guarantee you probably know someone that this applies to. So that's why I really encourage anyone on April 17th to go to this to see it and or bring somebody. I bet you that there's someone in your life that will really connect to this message. But the thing is that where that connects to the question about reactions, people all see the need and they also connect to the people who are there. I think that even if you've been married for 25 years, watching these people try and do that classic struggle of finding the right person is engaging. And by the grace of God, I think we found some amazing subjects. Megan really and Catherine found some amazing subjects, people to follow who just were really touching, warm, relatable people. And so, everything from, some 18-year-olds, I think the youngest audience member has been 13. The oldest audience member has been 83. And they all found something to connect with, which is really interesting. It's rare you find something that's so really goes across the spectrum of ages. This is one of those things. And then it was great, too, that the team they hired made this in a way that really is visually pretty. Like, it's easy to engage with. It's easy to laugh at. So it's something that really kind of touches your heart. I jokingly call this the best romantic comedy of the year that's not actually a feature film. It's not actually a narrative film. I think that you can watch this and just sort of fall in love with it regardless of where you're at in your life.
Amen. Very nice. Is there anything else that we should know about The Dating Project?
It's a film where you really can look at it as a great way of having a fun piece of art or media that actually can be used for the purposes like driving home a message or an idea. It really could be a movement starter. That's what we see it as being. And so without ever having to preach to somebody or try and sit them down for that talk, you can bring them out to this movie and then see it. I don't know anybody who watches this that doesn't talk about it afterwards. So even if they come, if you ever had to bring someone to church and they're like, and that's what you're trying to overcome. If they come with you to this, to the dating project, almost always they start talking afterwards. And that's the door you need to open to have everything else happen from there.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Tony Sands with Family Theater Productions.
If you have good news, we expect you to want to share it. Salvation in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who for love of us and for our salvation came down from heaven. Salvation in His name, and He is the only Savior, is what we are on earth for. Therefore, all those who spread the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ, we should encourage them. I can speak, but how many people can I reach alone? But the media, the television people, the radio, the newspapers, and all those who use the computer and its derivatives in various ways to spread the gospel. We must thank them. We must encourage them. We must work with them so that they can continue to spread the good news. There's so much news that is not so wonderful in the world, but there is also news that is wonderful. on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We encourage them and beg God to bless them, especially the Shalom World TV. God bless you.
Shalom World, God's own channel.